Fordazonia as chairman, Lance Morris and William McKinley. Alternates for the day are Matthew Graham and Glenn Fowler. Looks like we're going to have a fairly short meeting. Let's start with board members. Any of the board members have any comments that you'd like to discuss? And staff and assessor. Boy, we're moving right along. Okay. It appears that agenda item number 2, 3, 4 have been withdrawn. And agenda item number 5, Strathmore Villa Associates. Anybody here representing Strathmore Villa?
Mr. Middleton will not be here. We spoke with him verbally on the phone, and it was an oversight on his part. If you'll notice, items 4 and 6 are also his. They're of the same nature of case. It's a restricted income apartment. It's something that he files on annually for his clients, and so he verbally withdrew this one as well with us over the phone, but obviously procedurally we'll probably have to deny him for non-appearance.
So in effect, failure to appear or withdraw, it doesn't make any difference. He didn't have any interest in discussing it.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Then how about let's go to agenda item number 7.
Mr. Sandoval was a single-family owner-occupant, a SFU. Right. He, in contacting him, his application was merely filed so he could verify we had the right number of beds and baths accounted for his home. We reviewed the value. He was in agreement with it. I tried to attempt to compel him to talk to the clerk and withdraw, but apparently he did not.
Okay. Then it looks like the rest of them are withdrawals down to the withdrawal calendar. So do I hear a motion to deny agenda item 5, Strathmore Villa Associates, and agenda item 7, Mr. Sandoval, for failure to appear?
So moved.
Have a second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. And that leaves us with the withdrawal calendar.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept for withdrawal items number 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 9, and the withdrawal calendar.
We have a motion to accept withdrawals on the read-in agenda items plus the withdrawal calendar. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the withdrawals as stated. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Wow. Man, you're so efficient.
This is efficiency. I want you to know.
That leaves us on the agenda, item number 11, discussion of possible hearing deposit rule.
Yes, as you recall, Mr. Chairman, Mr. McKinley had been interested in adopting a rule similar to that in Kings County. He had observed that we have an example today of a tax agent who files regularly that says they're going to show up for the hearing under our hearing confirmation rule and then withdraws at the last minute. And we have another one that regularly does that. Kings County, when we investigated it, we did not find any other counties other than Kings County that have a similar rule. Kings County does not have a processing fee that is paid on all applications at the time of application. This is the only payment that you make in Kings County, and you get all of it back under this rule if you either show up for the hearing or withdraw far enough ahead of time. And so we originally implemented a different process in Tulare County where we have this hearing confirmation requirement. You send back the thing saying you're going to show up for hearing. In theory, then, that tells the assessor to prepare for the hearing. So I wanted to bring this back to you. As you can see, the guide today was all non-single family owner occupied. The way it is implemented in Kings County is it applies to everyone except single family owner occupied. And then so I got a list of the recent applications by our other agent, Mr. Weisgarber. And of the ones that he filed this past fall in one group, and so it's a very small sample, but 8 out of 10 of them would have been subject to this. However, I assume he makes the applicant pay that, and so it's not money out of his pocket. And although they would be angry with him if he didn't withdraw in a timely manner and get it back for them if he's not going to show up for hearing. But I thought I'd bring it back and we could talk to the assessor and see if the assessor feels like this would be useful to them, and whether it's a good idea to ask the Board of Supervisors to approve this type of rule.
What if, under the Kings County rule, they withdrew in advance? Would they still get their money back?
If you withdraw far enough ahead of time, yes. That's the way it's phrased. If a hearing is held and you appear, then the deposit is refunded. If you withdraw the application at least 30 days ahead of time, the deposit is refunded. So if you fail to appear for the hearing or you withdraw less than 30 days before the hearing, then we get to keep the deposit, is the way it works in Kings County.
When I brought this up before, Tim seemed to be resistant to it because he felt that he was getting a chance to work with these people and get them off the calendar. So I go back to you and ask you.
Still wouldn't be in favor of the rule just because the things we currently have in place have worked so well. The board in the last 4 years has given us rules about the separate applications for separate assessments and separate issues that help us deal with these habitual filers. And so bringing in an additional rule that might have the capacity in the future to single out particular people in an assessment appeals hearing process is something I would just be opposed to, because as a whole, both the assessor's office and I feel the board have tried to be taxpayer friendly. The habitual filers like Weisgarver, while there was a lot of volume to deal with, we spend very little time preparing for them just because we know they're not going to show. We use the calendar often as a method to rid ourselves of that plight. So the need for an additional rule, I just would be concerned that we would be adding, extra hardship upon, commercial owners who choose to represent themselves. And while it's just $200, and I assume those who own commercial property, are people of means, it's still something that they have to pay in order to have their case heard here. And I don't see a lot of justice in singling out a single group of people just because we have a couple of time wasters. We can deal with it effectively using our current rules.
Might create more work for the clerk, potentially, I guess, for collecting the money, refunding it, seeing if they withdrew within 30 days and all those things. Yeah.
We'd also, in a sense, have to have a trust fund for that. And
Right.
So it'd be an
Yeah, that's
extra
what I was
accounting
thinking.
step. The $30 can just go into whatever their normal processing is.
With this rule, you might even have more people file and without the intent of carrying it completely out and giving them some time to decide whether they want to pursue the case or not. In the meantime, the assessor and the clerk and everybody else is having to facilitate their scheduling. That's the negative to it. The positive to it is that if you have a situation where someone, general taxpayer, puts an application in and then finds out that they don't want to pursue the case 30 days prior to the hearing, they get their money back.
Does the clerk have any additional comments? So it's not that difficult for you to modify the docket to show
No, it wouldn't be.
show the withdrawals. So, and if the assessor is assuming we're in a crying wolf situation and they don't need to prepare, I mean, they could sandbag you at some point and actually show up, and then you wouldn't be prepared.
Certainly, and we try to be prepared even if that were to happen. I mean, for the single-family owner occupants, we do actually bring, if we haven't gotten them settled with the agent, we do bring evidence to support our case here at the hearing. The volume they file with us, though, they file with every other county in the state. And there is a limited number of people that work at Weisgarver and Associates, and it's the blessing in them. They've gotten past their own capacity to deal with what they're doing. They're out there fishing, and while I don't necessarily support that from the assessor's standpoint because the workload is voluminous, they do provide a service for taxpayers who otherwise would not be willing to come here and defend their own case.
There's a comment in here about how much work do you have to go to for a late withdrawal? In other words, how much preparation do you have to do on these things that are withdrawn at the last minute?
Very little. Very little.
Make them justify their comps. Is that what you're,
Absolutely.
call them back, they apply, then you call them back to justify their comps. They don't justify the comps, so they go on the withdrawal list. Is that the way it works?
That, or if we do a quick review of it and we're already treating it underneath another type of value review, then we'll go ahead and schedule them. So the bulk of them, due to the fact that we automatically review single-family properties within the county, are under that. And so we're able to go through quickly, eliminate 90% of what they file.
Well, are we asking to consider adopting this or consider thinking about it?
Well, what Mr. McKinley had brought up this idea, and so we investigated it a little bit last month, and now we're coming back to you with the fuller report. So we're looking for board direction on either pursuing this or saying we don't need to pursue this.
I think we keep it as
is?
Yeah, I appreciate the the information and the research, but especially hearing from the assessor, I would tend to leave it as is if it's not creating. We're concerned with an overdue burden that you guys are having to deal with, and if that could alleviate that, then that would be helpful. But it doesn't sound like that's the issue at all to me.
No.
I would just leave it as is. I feel.
Do you find the hearing confirmation notice rule to be useful?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And I believe I probably have the most advantageous situation of any assessor's office in the state when your board looks out for you and your workload, making sure that it's effective. Thank you, but I think it's effective with what we currently have.
I will point out to the board as well that the clerk actually does work behind the scenes with the assessor in terms of scheduling hearings, that you don't schedule too many at once, and you kind of work with them to say, well, which are the big ones? And if there's going to be a big one, then we'll schedule fewer that day and that sort of thing. So that there's a lot of that goes on informally.
Mr. Fowler, any comment?
I have no comment on it.
And Mr. Graham?
Yeah, I mean, I would vote to stay as is too, especially after hearing with the assessor.
As we are.
Okay, we
So
will
I think
take that as
that's the
direction
consensus of the board.
to do
Thank you for
nothing
your
further.
work.
You bet.
Okay, it appears that we do not have any business that's going to become part of our closed session. Therefore, there's no need for a closed session. Is there anything else that should be brought before the Assessment Appeals Board, February?
We do meet in March, back on the third Wednesday. And if I get out my binder, I'll remind you of the date. March 16th. Yeah. Did I say? I'm sorry. Third. Okay.
That's a Monday, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but we're back on the third week instead of the fourth, the way we've had it these 2 months. And then we'll do our break in April and May. Unfortunately for the accountants, not till April.
Hearing no other issues brought before the Assessment Appeal Board for February 23rd, 2015, this meeting is adjourned.